A widowed rancher thought his wife died years ago until twin girls walked in and called him Daddy. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, 10 years to the day after Nora disappeared. Caleb Thornwood held the yellowed envelope with hands that still remembered building fences beside her, still felt the phantom weight of her head against his shoulder during cold Kansas nights. The postmark read, Council Grove, a town she'd never mentioned. Inside, a lawyer's careful script detailed an estate, a cabin, and 2 names that stopped his heart. Daughters, age 9, twins, yours. The word that followed changed everything. Ours. But Nora was dead. The river had taken her. He'd searched for weeks until the authorities declared her drowned. Yet here was proof she'd lived, hidden, keeping his children's secret for reasons he couldn't fathom. Caleb stood on the porch of his ranch house outside Lawrence, Kansas, watching dust devils dance across the autumn prairie. The letter trembled in his grip, though the wind had nothing to do with it. Behind him, the screen door creaked, and his younger brother, Weston, emerged with 2 cups of coffee. "You going to tell me what's got you looking like you've seen a ghost?" Weston asked, handing him a cup. "Maybe I have." Caleb's voice came out rough. He'd barely slept since the letter arrived 3 days ago. "Read this." Weston scanned the document, his expression shifting from curiosity to shock. "This can't be real. Nora died a decade back. You buried her. Well, you held a service. We never found a body." The sheriff said, "I know what he said." Caleb cut him off, staring at the horizon where the Wakarusa River wound through the valley. That river had been the center of their lives. Water for the cattle, fishing in summer, the place where Nora used to read books on a blanket while he mended tack. The place that supposedly claimed her life during spring floods. "So what are you going to do?" Caleb folded the letter carefully, tucking it into his shirt pocket over his heart. "I'm going to Council Grove. Tomorrow. That's a 2-day ride minimum, and those girls, Caleb, they might not even be yours. This could be some kind of swindle." The lawyer included this. Caleb pulled out a small tin-type photograph that had been enclosed. 2 girls with dark braids stood before a cabin, solemn-faced, but their eyes, green as creek water after rain, were unmistakably his, and their mother's. Weston studied the image and swore softly. "They're the spitting image of you both." "I need to know why," Caleb said quietly. "Why she left, why she hid them, why she never told me I had daughters." "You think she ran from something?" "I think our family gave her plenty of reasons to run." The words hung heavy between them. The Thornwood name carried weight in eastern Kansas. 3 generations of cattle ranchers who'd built an empire through hard work and harder choices. Caleb's father, Amos, had ruled the ranch with an iron will, until his death 5 years past. The old man had never approved of Nora, a schoolteacher's daughter with more books than dowry. "Father never gave her a moment's peace," Weston admitted. "But to fake her own death? Maybe she didn't. Maybe she barely survived, and something kept her away." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Either way, I have 2 daughters who just lost their mother. They need to know they have a father." Caleb left before dawn, his horse saddled and saddlebags packed with provisions. The ride to Council Grove took him through the heart of Kansas, endless prairie transitioning to the Flint Hills, where limestone ridges broke the monotony of grass. He pushed hard, camping only when darkness made travel dangerous, his mind churning with questions that had no answers yet. Council Grove sat at the junction of the Neosho River and the old Santa Fe Trail. It had once been a bustling stop for traders and travelers, though those days had faded as railroads changed commerce routes. Now it was a modest town of timber yards and farmers' supply stores, with a handful of permanent residents. The lawyer's office occupied a narrow building between a dry goods store and a blacksmith. Caleb tied his horse and entered, his boots loud on the wooden floor. A man in spectacles looked up from a desk cluttered with papers. "Help you?" "Name's Caleb Thornwood. I received a letter about an estate." "Nora Thornwood." Recognition flickered across the lawyer's face. He stood, extending a hand. "Mr. Thornwood, I'm Orville Kemp. I've been expecting you, though I wasn't certain you'd come." "Where are my daughters?" Kemp gestured to a chair. "Please sit. There are things you need to understand first." "I need to see them." "And you will." But Nora left instructions and explanations. Kemp retrieved a thick folder. "She came to Council Grove 11 years ago, pregnant and alone. She told no one her real name for the first few years, worked as a seamstress, lived quietly. It wasn't until she fell ill this past summer that she called for me and revealed her full story." Caleb's hands clenched on his knees. "What story?" "She loved you," Kemp said gently. "That's the first thing she wanted you to know. But your father, forgive me for speaking ill, made it clear she'd never be accepted. She overheard him one night, talking to your brother about paying her to leave, about how the Thornwood bloodline shouldn't be sullied by common stock." Heat flooded Caleb's face, shame and rage mingling. "I never knew." "She believed you didn't. But she was pregnant and frightened. When she discovered she was carrying twins, she panicked. Your father had made veiled threats, suggestions that accidents could happen. She staged her disappearance during the floods, fled east, then north. Ended up here by chance and stayed because it felt safe. She robbed me of 10 years, 10 years of their lives. She died believing she'd protected them." Kemp's voice hardened slightly. "And you, in a way, she thought if she vanished, the tension would ease. Your father would stop pressuring you to marry someone of proper standing." Caleb stood abruptly, pacing the small office. Outside, the street bustled with afternoon commerce. Ordinary people live in ordinary lives. His own life felt shattered, the pieces rearranged into a pattern he didn't recognize. "The girls," he said finally. "Tell me about them." Kemp's expression softened. Bright as polished silver, Nora taught them reading, arithmetic, history. They helped the neighbors tend a garden. They scared Mr. Thornwood. Their mother just died, and suddenly they're being told about a father they never knew existed. They've been staying with the minister's wife, but that's temporary. I want to see them now." The minister's house was a tidy white structure with a vegetable garden and chickens pecking in the yard. Caleb followed Kemp up the path, his heart hammering against his ribs. A woman answered the door, middle-aged, kind-faced, with flour dusting her apron. "Mr. Thornwood," she said warmly, "the girls are in the parlor. I've told them you were coming." The parlor was small, but comfortable, with lace curtains and a shelf of books. Two girls sat on a horsehair sofa, hands folded identically in their laps. They looked up as he entered, and Caleb's breath caught. They had Nora's delicate features and his own strong jaw, a blend that was heartbreakingly beautiful. One wore a blue dress, the other green. Both had hair in long braids, and those unmistakable green eyes studied him with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "Hello," Caleb managed, his voice rough. He cleared his throat. I'm your father. The girl in blue spoke first. Mama said our father lived far away on a big ranch with lots of cattle. That's true, in Lawrence, east of here. Did you know about us? The girl in green asked, her voice smaller. No. Caleb crouched down to their level, 20 feet of floor, suddenly feeling like a canyon. I only just found out. If I'd known, I would have been here every day of your lives. They exchanged a look, some twin communication he couldn't interpret. The girl in blue spoke again. I'm Lillian. This is my sister Ada. Mama named us after grandmothers. Not yours, she added quickly. Her side. Those are beautiful names. Caleb's throat tightened. Your mother was very smart and very brave. She cried sometimes, Ada said softly. At night, when she thought we were sleeping, she'd look at our picture frame, the one with nothing in it, and cry. A frame waiting for a family portrait that never came. Caleb closed his eyes briefly, grief crashing over him. When he opened them, both girls were watching him with that unsettling intensity children possessed. I know this is frightening, he said carefully. You just lost your mother, and now there's a stranger saying he's your father. You don't have to trust me right away, but I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. You're my daughters, and I want to take care of you, if you'll let me. Lillian tilted her head. Would we live on your ranch? Yes, there's plenty of room. Your Uncle Weston lives there too, and horses, cattle, chickens. There's a creek not far from the house where you could swim in summer. Mama taught us to swim, Ada offered, a hint of pride in her voice. Did she? Caleb smiled, despite the ache in his chest. She taught me too, when we were young. We grew up near the same river. Will there be other children? Lillian asked. Not at the ranch, but there's a school in Lawrence, about a mile ride. Good teacher, I hear. They fell silent, processing. The minister's wife appeared with glasses of milk and cookies, giving them time to think. Caleb sat in a nearby chair, content to let them set the pace. He studied them openly, the way Lillian's fingers drummed against her knee when she was thinking, Ada's habit of tucking hair behind her ear. Finally, Lillian spoke. Mama said if she ever couldn't take care of us anymore, we should trust our father. She said you were a good man who'd been hurt by lies. She said that. She made us promise. The night before she died. Ada's eyes welled with tears. She said you'd come, and we shouldn't be afraid. Caleb crossed the room before he could think, kneeling before them. I give you my word, you'll never have to be afraid again. Not of me, not of anything I can prevent. We're family, the three of us. That means we protect each other. Ada leaned forward slowly, tentatively, until her forehead rested against his shoulder. Lillian followed a moment later. Caleb wrapped his arms around them both. These daughters he'd just met, but already loved with a ferocity that stunned him. They smelled like soap and sunshine, felt small and fragile in his embrace. Can we bring Mama's books? Lillian whispered. Every single one, Caleb promised. They left Council Grove 2 days later, after settling the estate and packing the girls' belongings into a small wagon Caleb purchased. The cabin Nora had rented was sparse but clean, filled with evidence of her life. Sewing projects, lesson plans for the girls, a journal he couldn't bring himself to read yet. The journey back to Lawrence took longer with the wagon and frequent stops for the girls. They rode inside mostly, peeking out at the landscape, asking questions about their new home. Caleb answered patiently, learning their personalities through their curiosities. Lillian was bold, quick with questions and opinions. She wanted to know about the cattle operation, how many head they ran, what breed, how the business worked. Ada was quieter, more observant. She asked about the house, the garden, whether there were flowers. She mentioned loving to draw. At night, they camped under stars that stretched horizon to horizon. Caleb taught them to tend the fire, to read the weather in the sky. They told him about their mother, how she taught them to read using Shakespeare and Whitman, how she made the best cornbread, how she'd hum while sewing. "Did she ever talk about me?" Caleb asked one evening, unable to stop himself. Ada nodded. "She said you built her a bookshelf once, even though you weren't good with small carpentry. She said it was lopsided but perfect because you made it for her." Caleb remembered. He'd been 18, courting her awkwardly, all thumbs and earnest declarations. The bookshelf had indeed been crooked. She'd kept it anyway. "She said you made her laugh," Lillian added, "even when times were hard." "We had good times," Caleb said softly. Before things got complicated." "Because of your father?" Lillian's directness startled him. "You know about that?" "Mama told us some. That his family was important and hers wasn't. That he wanted you to marry someone rich." Lillian frowned. "That's stupid. People are people." "You're absolutely right," Caleb agreed. "I wish I'd been brave enough to tell him that." "Are you brave enough now?" Ada asked. Caleb looked at his daughters, their faces illuminated by firelight. "Yes," he said firmly, "I am." They arrived at the ranch on a cool October afternoon, the prairie grass golden in slanting light. The main house stood solid, 2 stories of whitewashed wood, with a wide porch and stone chimney. Outbuildings dotted the property, barns, stables, bunkhouse for the ranch hands. Cattle grazed in distant pastures, and horses watched curiously from the corral. Weston emerged from the barn as they approached, followed by the ranch foreman, a weathered man named Ezra. Both stopped short at the sight of the girls. "Well, I'll be," Ezra muttered. Weston approached slowly, his expression complex. "Ladies," he said formally. "Welcome home." Lillian eyed him critically. "You're our uncle?" "Weston Thornwood, and you must be Lillian. You've got that look of someone who doesn't suffer fools." Lillian's mouth quirked. "I like him," she told Caleb. Ada hung back, studying the house. "It's big." "Too big for just us rattling around," Weston said gently. "Could use some life in it." Caleb helped them down from the wagon, retrieving their bags. Inside, the house smelled of wood smoke and leather, familiar and masculine. He showed them to the second floor, where 2 bedrooms sat side by side. They'd been guest rooms, barely used. Now they'd need curtains, rugs, whatever made girls comfortable. "They're empty," Ada said, disappointed. "For now. Tomorrow we'll go to town, buy whatever you need. Furniture, decorations, anything you want." Caleb crouched down. "I want you to feel at home here." "Did Mama ever see this house?" Lillian asked. "She did. We were planning to—" He stopped. "She lived here for 6 months after we married, before she disappeared." The girls exchanged that look again. Finally, Ada spoke. "Can we see her room?" Caleb's chest tightened. "It's my room now, but yes." He led them down the hall to the master bedroom. He'd changed little since Nora left. The quilt she'd made still covered the bed. Her favorite chair remained by the window. A few of her books lined a shelf, ones he couldn't bear to pack away. Ada walked to the window, touching the chair. She sat here. Every morning, she liked to watch the sunrise. Lillian examined the bookshelf. These are hers. Some she left behind. The lopsided one, Ada asked suddenly. Is it still here? Caleb felt something crack in his chest. In the attic. I couldn't look at it after she left, but I couldn't get rid of it either. Can we have it? Lillian asked. For our room? Absolutely. That evening, they ate dinner around the long dining table. Weston's cooking, which was serviceable if uninspired. The girls picked at their food, exhaustion and stress catching up. Caleb noticed Ada's eyes drooping. How about we get you both settled, he suggested. Tomorrow's soon enough for everything else. He helped them prepare for bed, awkward with the mechanics of braiding hair and finding night clothes. But they were patient with him. As he tucked Ada in, she caught his hand. Are you really our father? The vulnerability in her voice gutted him. I really am. Will you leave like Mama did? Never. I promise you, Ada. I'm here for as long as you need me. Forever, if you'll have me. She studied his face, then nodded slowly. Okay. In Lillian's room, his bolder daughter had a different question. What if we don't like it here? Then we'll figure something out, Caleb said honestly. But I hope you'll give it a chance. Give me a chance. Mama loved you, Lillian said abruptly. Even though she left, she loved you. She told us all the time. I loved her too, I still do. And now I love you both. Lillian's eyes glistened, but she blinked fiercely. Don't make promises you can't keep. I never do. The first weeks were an adjustment for everyone. The girls were quiet, watchful, testing boundaries. Caleb learned their routines, their preferences, the small ways they dealt with grief. Lillian threw herself into learning the ranch, following him and Ezra around, asking incessant questions. Ada stayed closer to the house, drawing pictures of landscapes and animals, slowly warming to Weston's gentle humor. They enrolled in school, which brought its own challenges. The other children were curious about the Thornwood twins, who'd appeared from nowhere. Some were friendly. Others, sensing an interesting target, were cruel. Caleb discovered this when he picked them up one afternoon and found Lillian with scraped knuckles and Ada in tears. What happened? He demanded. Some boys said we were liars, Lillian said fiercely. Said we weren't really your daughters, that we were pretending for money. Rage flooded Caleb. He stormed into the schoolhouse, finding the teacher, a stern woman named Miss Cartwright. Those boys will apologize, he said flatly, or answer to me. Miss Cartwright raised an eyebrow. Mr. Thornwood, I understand you're protective, but children can be thoughtless. They called my daughters liars. They questioned their legitimacy. That ends now. The teacher studied him, then nodded slowly. I'll address it. The boys apologized, but the damage lingered. Ada became more withdrawn, Lillian more aggressive. Caleb felt helpless, unsure how to shield them from small-town gossip while helping them integrate. Weston suggested a different approach. Stop trying to protect them from everything. Teach them to protect themselves. So Caleb did. He taught Lillian to ride properly, to handle cattle, to use her sharp mind for strategy rather than fighting. He taught Ada that quiet strength had its own power, that observing and understanding people was a weapon too. Slowly, they found their footing. The ranch became home. They developed routines, breakfast together, chores, school, evenings studying or reading. Weston taught them card games and storytelling. Ezra showed them how to gentle horses. The ranch hands, initially awkward around children, became protective. But underlying everything was the unspoken question: why had Nora left? Caleb finally opened her journal 2 months after bringing the girls home. He read alone in his study, with a glass of whiskey he didn't touch. Her handwriting was achingly familiar, her words devastating. She documented everything: his father's threats, the night she overheard the bribery plan, her terror when she realized she was pregnant. She wrote about fleeing during the floods, about nearly drowning for real, about finding refuge in Council Grove. But the entries that destroyed him were about the years after. Her longing to return, to tell him about the girls. The fear that kept her frozen, fear of Amos's reach, fear that Caleb had moved on, fear that she'd destroy whatever peace he'd found. "I've made myself a ghost," she wrote in one entry. "I haunt my own life, watching from a distance. The girls ask about their father, and I tell them stories. I make him a hero because that's how I remember him: strong, kind, capable of great love. I hope it's still true. I hope I didn't destroy that part of him when I left." Caleb closed the journal, grief overwhelming him. She'd been afraid of his father. But Amos was 5 years dead. If she'd just reached out, just trusted him. But she had trusted him in the end. She'd sent him their daughters. Winter arrived, blanketing the ranch in snow. The girls experienced their first Christmas in their new home, and Caleb went overboard. Presents piled high, a tree decorated with ornaments, a feast that left them all groaning. "This is too much," Ada whispered, overwhelmed. "It's not enough," Caleb countered. "I have 10 years to make up for." "You can't make up for lost time," Lillian said wisely. "You can only make new time count." So he did. He taught them everything: ranch management, finance, horsemanship. They were his heirs, his legacy, and he wanted them prepared for anything. They soaked up, knowledge like prairie grass after rain, each in their own way. One evening in early spring, they sat on the porch watching storm clouds gather. Lightning flickered on the horizon, and thunder rumbled distantly. "Tell us about Mama when she lived here," Ada said. Caleb had been expecting this. "She was brilliant. She taught school in town before we married, and all the children loved her. She could make any subject interesting." "Were you happy?" Lillian asked. "Very, until my father decided we weren't suitable for each other. Because she was poor. Because he was a fool who valued money over character." Caleb's voice hardened. He thought legacy meant land and cattle. He didn't understand. It means the people we love, the values we pass on. "Is that why you want us to learn everything?" Ada asked. "So we can run the ranch someday?" "I want you to learn because knowledge is freedom. Whether you run the ranch, become doctors, teachers, anything. I want you to have choices. Your mother didn't feel like she had choices. I won't let that happen to you." The storm broke then, rain sweeping across the prairie. They moved inside, and Caleb made hot chocolate while the girls settled with books. He watched them. Lillian sprawled on the sofa with a volume on animal husbandry. Ada curled in Nora's chair with a poetry collection. They were finding themselves here, becoming themselves, and he was learning to be their father. Later that night, after they'd gone to bed, Weston joined him on the porch, despite the rain. "You're doing good with them," his brother said. "I'm trying." "More than trying, you're giving them what Father never gave us, freedom to be who they are." Caleb looked at him. "Do you ever regret staying, working this ranch under his thumb?" "Sometimes. But it's mine now, ours. We can make it mean something different. Weston paused. Those girls are changing things, making this place feel like a home instead of a business. They deserve that. So did you. So did Nora. The name hung between them, accompanied by rain and thunder. Caleb thought about forgiveness for his father, for Nora, for himself. Some wounds never fully healed, but maybe they weren't supposed to. Maybe they just became part of the landscape, scars that reminded you what mattered. Summer arrived with heat that shimmered off the prairie. The girls had been with Caleb for 9 months, and the transformation was complete. They were confident, capable, part of the ranch's fabric. Lillian helped Ezra with cattle drives. Ada kept the account books with mathematical precision that stunned Weston. But they were still children, and children needed. Caleb took them to the creek on a blistering July afternoon, the same creek where he'd courted Nora decades before. They swam and played, and he taught them to fish. Ada caught a perch she was ridiculously proud of. Lillian fell in completely clothed and came up laughing. As they dried off on the bank, Lillian asked, "Ah, you lonely? Without Mama?" The question caught him off guard. "Sometimes, but I have you too. That helps." "You could marry again," Ada suggested. "Miss Cartwright looks at you funny at church." Caleb choked on water. "What?" "It's true," Lillian agreed. "She gets all pink and stammery." "I'm not interested in Miss Cartwright." "Because you still love Mama?" "Yes. And because I have everything I need right here." They seemed satisfied with that answer. As they walked back to the house, the sun setting over endless grass, Caleb felt something he hadn't experienced in years: peace. That evening, he finally hung Nora's portrait in the parlor. It had been packed away since her disappearance, too painful to display. Now it felt right. The girls needed to see their mother watching over them. "She was beautiful," Ada said softly. "She was everything," Caleb agreed. They stood together, the three of them, looking at the image of the woman who'd shaped all their lives. Caleb wondered if she'd be proud of what they were building, a family born from loss, but rooted in love. "Tell us the story again," Lillian requested, "about how you met." Caleb smiled, settling into his chair. "I was 16, and she was the new teacher's daughter." He told them everything: the lopsided bookshelf, their courtship, their brief marriage, the joy before the sorrow. He told them about his father's interference, about the night Nora disappeared, about the decade he'd believed her dead. "But she wasn't running from you," Ada said firmly. "She was protecting us, protecting you too, from your father." "I know that now." "Do you forgive her?" Lillian asked. "Did he?" Caleb considered carefully. "I forgive her for being afraid. I forgive her for doing what she thought was necessary. I don't forgive my father for creating a situation where she felt she had no other choice." "We don't forgive him either," Lillian declared. "We never even met him, and we don't forgive him." "That's fair." They fell silent, and Caleb thought about forgiveness and legacy, about the ways pain echoed through generations. His father had valued control and status, and it had cost him relationships, love, joy. Caleb would not repeat those mistakes. "I want you to know something," he said seriously. "This ranch, this land, it's yours someday. But more than that, the choice of what to do with it is yours. If you want to sell it and move to a city, study medicine or art or law, I'll support that. Legacy isn't about forcing children to walk in your footsteps. It's about giving them strong enough legs to choose their own path." Ada hugged him suddenly, fiercely. Lillian joined in, and they held each other in the lamplight, three people bound by blood and choice and love. "We'll stay," Lillian said. "This is home." "But maybe we'll change things," Ada added. "Make them better." "That's exactly what I hope for," Caleb told them. 5 years later, the Thornwood Ranch thrived under new management. Caleb had stepped back, letting his daughters, now 14 and astonishingly competent, take increasing responsibility. Lillian managed the cattle operations with Ezra, while Ada handled finances and began breeding horses with bloodlines that commanded premium prices. They were still his little girls in many ways, but they were also becoming remarkable women. They'd grown into Nora's grace and intelligence, Caleb's determination and integrity. They'd taken the pain of their origins and transformed it into strength. The town had long since accepted them. The whispers faded when the Thornwood twins became the best riders in the county, when Ada's artwork won awards at the state fair, when Lillian negotiated cattle prices that impressed hardened ranchers. But the most important change was internal. The ranch house filled with laughter, with friends visiting, with the sounds of life being lived fully. Weston married a widow from town and brought her son into the fold. Ezra's daughter came to help with horses. The place became a home in truth, not just name. Caleb still talked to Nora sometimes, late at night on the porch. He told her about the girls, about their triumphs and struggles, about how proud she'd be. He'd never completely resolved his feelings about her deception, but love was complicated. It contained multitudes, joy and pain, forgiveness and grief. One evening, as autumn painted the prairie gold again, the girls found him on the porch. "We want to do something," Lillian announced. "We've been saving money." "We want to endow a scholarship," Ada explained. "For girls who want education but can't afford it, in Mama's name." Caleb's throat tightened. She'd love that. "We're calling it the Nora Thornwood Memorial Scholarship for Young Women." "Because knowledge is freedom," Lillian added, echoing his words from years ago. "And everyone deserves choices," Ada finished. They sat together, watching the sunset over land that had seen 3 generations of Thornwoods. But this generation was different. They understood that legacy wasn't about preserving the past. It was about building a future worthy of those who came before. Caleb looked at his daughters, bold Lillian and thoughtful Ada, and knew Nora would be proud. They'd taken the fractured pieces of their family history and forged something beautiful. They'd chosen love over bitterness, growth over stagnation. "Your mother used to say that the prairie teaches you about resilience," Caleb said quietly. "It burns and floods and freezes, but the grass always comes back." She was like that, resilient even when the world tried to break her. "We're like that too," Lillian said. "We come from strong stock." "The strongest," Caleb agreed. As stars emerged overhead, the 3 of them sat in comfortable silence. The ranch stretched around them, land and legacy, past and future, all bound together. This was what family meant. Not perfection, but presence. Not forgetting pain, but choosing hope despite it. Twin girls who'd walked into a stranger's life and called him daddy had become his daughters in every way that mattered. They taught him that love could survive separation, that family could be rebuilt, that the mistakes of one generation didn't have to define the next. And somewhere, Caleb believed, Nora was watching. Her legacy lived in their daughters' laughter, their compassion, their fierce determination to make the world better. She'd given him the greatest gift, not just children, but a chance at redemption, at building something that would outlast them all. The prairie wind whispered through the grass, carrying with it the promise of seasons to come. The Thornwood family would endure, not because of land or cattle or money, but because of love that refused to be extinguished. Not by distance, not by death, not by time. This was their story, imperfect, hard-won, and completely, beautifully real.